mindful of everybody's time, since it's 6 o'clock, you can go ahead and get started. I won't probably today have to time in too much, but we're going to start with Nicole here, who's our Civic Convention and Main Street Coordinator. So she handles most of our Main Street redevelopment efforts, which is like why you see her on the behind the doors and all the social media stuff now. I'll let her kind of talk a little bit about the Dome and what we've got going on downtown and some of the tools we're using there.
Yeah, well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming. Like you said, I have a pretty long title. It's a mouthful. But all it means is my main areas of focus are the Dome, Main Street, and then community engagement and events. So Deidre and myself are the ones that do a lot of the planning for all of our city events. Some side quests I have is I'm the secretary of the Chamber of Commerce. So I work with those lovely ladies up there, Fritzy and Renee. If y'all have never met them, definitely go by the chamber and say hi. They're awesome. I'm also what's considered our VAL, so volunteer agency liaison for our community organizations active in disaster. They love acronyms, if you can't tell. And then also I'm on the Borger emergency support team. So I help the people that are doing the real work, and I go get them food and coffee and just make sure that they're good to do their jobs. So first, let's start with the Dome. The Dome was engineered by Buckmaster Fuller. He's actually a really famous engineer, and he is the one that kind of came up with the groundbreaking design of the aluminum Kaiser Dome. There's one that was recently demolished in Hawaii. So I think we are kind of the oldest, last remaining ones that are in Texas. So pretty much the story of the Dome. The 1950s, economy was booming, everything was going good. They decided, hey, we need a space to hold big events. We need a gathering space. And so they actually tried to get a much larger bond passed to get a big convention center built, and it failed. It was really hot, and the voters just didn't turn out. They kind of got a petition together of 707 people, and they got that passed. And the mayor, L.D. Patton, he was a member of the Chamber of Commerce, or he was the mayor, and then the Chamber of Commerce manager, Dave Moore, they saw an ad, they were sitting there watching TV, and they saw the Kaiser aluminum dome come up. So they were like, hey, this might be a good idea. It was significantly cheaper than their original planned convention center. This is kind of like a timeline of the Dome. So we have a new beginning. And so city took ownership of it in 2018 from the county. They originally owned it and gifted it to us. And then in 2019, they kind of started planning. They use Park Hill Engineering. They're a big engineering firm out of Amarillo that handles a lot of like the schools projects and the city's projects. The people over there are amazing. And then in 2020, they did a venue tax election, which allowed for a 2% venue tax to be put on your hotel bill. So that way the local taxpayers aren't paying for this. It's the people who are coming into our town and staying in those hotels that are funding it. And then I was hired in 2021. They created the Civic Convention and Main Street Coordinator position. And so that's when I started, and that's when renovations really started beginning. I have some cool pictures up there from when the renovations were happening. It was amazing walking through the Dome when they were putting those ceiling tiles in. Do y'all remember the Dome, how it used to be? Are y'all all from here? Yes, so it was either really, really hot or really, really cold, and we had that big black trash bags up on the ceiling. So they put a total of about a $10 to $11 million investment into the Dome. And it is funded through hotel occupancy tax. So like I said, when you stay in a hotel, wherever you stay, you're normally paying a hotel occupancy tax on your bill. Then they added the 2% venue tax to help fund it. And then also money from our tourism balance helps fund this because it does bring in out-of-town guests. And then also Nutrien graciously donated $285,000 to help pay for this as well. That is Miss Mackenzie. She is our booking specialist. So if you've ever booked at the Dome, you have talked to her. She's actually on maternity leave right now having a baby. So hopefully she's coming back soon. We really miss her. I know Katie does. Katie is her stand-in right now. So she's been doing a lot of work. But I put some just stats up there. So I do an annual report on the Dome every year. And this is just kind of as of December 2025. So this is none of this year's numbers yet. But we've had about 77,558 people come through that building. So it's gotten some use out of it. And we have held over 842 events. So when people say there's nothing to do in Borger, they're lying to y'all. But Mackenzie is responsible for kind of managing and coordinating bookings. She's the one that's making sure your things get set up right, making sure nothing gets double booked, and making sure you have a really great experience. If y'all want, y'all can scan that QR code and it'll take you to the Dome's website. And that's where you can find our booking policies, pricing, and all kinds of stuff. My favorite part of my job is definitely Main Street. So here's a little bit about what Main Street even is. I get that a lot. What does even that mean? You do Main Street. Well, Main Street is a nationwide preservation-based economic development initiative. And so there's a national organization, which is Main Street America, and they kind of set the ground rules, I guess, essentially for all the state coordinating programs. And then in Texas, we fall under the Texas Historical Commission. They are the ones who operate the Texas Main Street program. Now, to get into the Texas Main Street program, we actually got to be kind of guinea pigs for them. So kind of the first thing Garrett told me to do when I started, he was like, hey, we're trying to get into this Main Street program, figure out how to get into there. So I applied. The application's like this. It took forever. And they went through and they actually reached out to us and they were like, hey, we're looking at redoing our application process. You guys are right on the verge of being ready. You have a lot of good things happening, but you're just not quite there yet. But y'all are further along than a lot of people that come into the application process. And also they realized on paper what it looked like was a lot different than when you came here. They noticed that our Main Street was a lot more vibrant. It had a lot of cool features, and a lot of those things weren't being kind of shown or reflected in their application process. So we got to be the guinea pigs, and we got to kind of be in this program, and just kind of, I got to go to all their trainings even without being in the program, so I got to learn a lot. And then they developed what's called the First Street Initiative. So we got to go through this program. There was no cost, there's minimum time commitment, and it's just like kind of an educational class. So I would meet with them like every month. We would go over things, and now, in order to get into the Texas Main Street program, there isn't an application. You have to go through the First Street Initiative. So this is kind of their way of getting cities ready to be in the Main Street program without having to like either deny an application and you're not really knowing why you're not in it. So this is going to allow you to go through this program, learn everything about Main Street that you need to know, and then be ready to join eventually into the actual program. So we got into this program this year. It was a really big, happy day for me, I'm not gonna lie. We met with Cecilia Abbott, the governor's wife. She came and presented us with our Main Street nomination. That's what that was. Yes, it's called the First Ladies event. The Main Street program actually was made in the 1980s. I wanna say it's 1983. Don't quote me on the exact year, but I know it was the 80s. And so they come, it's kind of like a long-standing tradition. The First Lady or of the governor's office comes, they do a big ceremony, and then also, if you've noticed right outside our doors, there's a big rendering. And so that's a big part of being in the Main Street program as well. We have access to architectures. So they can provide services for us, help us do rendering so people can like imagine the possibilities of like, what could this building look like? I know we have 47% vacancy in our downtown right now. There's a lot of vacant buildings, a lot of work to do. But the Texas Main Street program is a little more stringent, so it is actually a contractual agreement that we have with the Historical Commission. Part of that contract is that the city agrees that they will fund a full-time position, like me, to do where I wanna say it's over 75% of my work is focused on Main Street. There is a lot of reporting too. I have to do quarterly reporting where we track like kind of sales tax, job creation, and investment dollars into our downtown, or people putting money into our downtown. What does that look like? And it's really cool because the longer you're in the program, the longer you can track it. And Amarillo, so in the Panhandle we have Canyon, Amarillo, Borger, and Levelland. We're kind of the only cities that are in the Panhandle. And Beth Duke is the Main Street coordinator from Amarillo, and she shared with me our last training we were at that she has officially tracked $1 billion worth of investment into downtown Amarillo since she started. Now she's an OG, she's been doing it for a lot longer than we have, but it's really cool to see that and to think that that could be us one day where we can say, hey, we've had $1 billion invested into our downtown. So what does this look like locally? This is what you would probably hear a lot of is the Borger Main Street project. Our mission is just to simply create an environment of connection, collaboration, and revitalization in our downtown. So we bring together business owners, property owners, local volunteers that want to come and be a part of our movement, and we meet monthly. So we meet on the fourth Monday of every month at the Dome, unless it's like a holiday weird situation like Memorial Day or something. Yeah, and so we just kind of discuss like, what can we do to get this downtown activated? So what does that look like? A big part of that is relationships. I will say Main Street is really, really built on relationships and establishing those with the property owners, but also talking with our local businesses. Like, what do they need? What are their struggles that they're coming into? What are they thriving at? What is going well? What can we duplicate? And so that's a lot of the conversations that we have in our Main Street meetings. Along with this program, it's really awesome. We have access to a lot of educational services too. So the picture up there, we actually went, a lot of our Main Street board, Deidre and myself, went to Austin to the Real Places conference, and we attended a vacancy workshop. And so they actually provided a bunch of data that is really expensive to get on our downtown, and we got to come up with like a vacancy plan and work through what's called transformation strategies. Garrett, do you know how I can click the video? This is a short video, I promise it's not long. So this is kind of give you a brief overview of what the 4-point approach is. So that is the 4-point approach. It is definitely scientifically backed. I mean, it has worked, and I think it's a great model that we can then use to try to model our Main Street after. There's a total, I want to say, of 82 communities that are in Main Street in Texas right now. So like she said, the big focus areas are economic vitality. So are we getting new businesses down here, different kinds of businesses? A lot of the time we'll hear from our small businesses, well, we just can't compete with Amazon. We can't compete with Walmart. Downtown isn't supposed to. You're supposed to be something that's unique, experiential, something that's been either handcrafted or a local person has created. And then organization, so that goes back to the key like partnerships I was talking about, relationships, having a network of people that you can call on for resources. And then design, so what do these buildings look like? Obviously we want to maintain our historic heritage and character. These buildings are they're 100 years old today, a lot of them are. And so making sure that they're not crumbling in. A lot of these have sat vacant for 30 plus years, and so a lot of them need, electrical upgrades, plumbing upgrades, they need new roofs. And then promotion. I think Deidre does a wonderful job on our Facebook of getting our name out there. That's kind of why we started the Behind the Doors series, so that we can kind of show the history of these buildings, but also what they are now, but get people thinking of what they could be. I mean, there really is great possibilities of us transforming this area. In Main Street, you have a definite work plan that you follow, and it's called transformation strategies. So every year they make you sit down and come up with a transformation strategy. So what are y'all working on this year? Our #1 transformation strategy is dining and entertainment. We need a nighttime dining anchor business. We have a wonderful anchor business called Onions at lunch. And I think if y'all have been downtown during lunch, she is popping. Everybody's coming to Onions, and that also drives foot traffic to the other businesses downtown and helps them, like, when you get done eating, you wanna go walk around and pop into stores and shop and see what's going on. So for us, we're really focused on trying to find a nighttime dining restaurant that we can get in downtown that will be open later and kind of start building that nightlife and getting a little bit more traffic down here. Goal 2, like I said before, we know that our buildings are old. We know that there's barriers to get into these buildings. A lot of people can't purchase a building, renovate it, and start a business all at the same time. It's big costs. So, which I'll go into a little bit later about the TIRZ, but one of our goals was to utilize what's called TIRZ funding to help bridge that gap. And then our second big Main Street transformation strategy is placemaking. So the idea of placemaking is that you create a series of places down Main Street that create a walkable kind of experience, not just all bundled up into one area, but kind of spreading them out and having kind of like dragging Main. I know, I'm like, who all in here dragged Main when they were younger? I was gonna say, yeah, yes. So essentially it's that same ideology, dragging Main, getting different things along Main Street so you have different places to go. And you can park and get out and walk and go experience it. You're not just pulling up to one store, running in, and then getting back into your car and running off. You have a reason to come downtown and then stay downtown. A big part of that we're working on right now is a signage project. Getting the businesses that are open, good signage. Can you see what their business is from the street, but also as a pedestrian, can you see street level signage? And so we're actually partnering with Steve Olius. He has the 04 fabrication. Yes, and so we've been partnering with him, and he is going to help us make a lot of these wrought iron signage that we can give to these Main Street businesses and have a more consistent design aesthetic downtown, so that if you see that wrought iron signage, that's an open business, we can go in there. And then the second goal that we're working on is bistro seating or outdoor seating. So creating an environment, like I said, where you can stay downtown, you can sit, chill, read a book, not necessarily purchasing. Yep, there we go. So working with him to get different signage into our area.
Just for context too, we looked at those from a multitude of manufacturers, and they're going to be about $3,600 without the sign. And we worked with Steve, and that's actually like $230.
So perks of shopping local. Always check out your local resources. But yeah, so we're trying to figure out funding on how we can get more seating downtown and just more areas to people to congregate and gather. We have 2 wonderful pass-through parks. I don't know if any of y'all have been through either Wanda Klaus, which is in the 500 block, or the new one that's in the 400 block. A lot of people complain about parking on Main Street, which I would have to argue is not a problem.
Here's which is where I was gonna.
Oh, you see, we already on the same page.
So this is Walmart. That's
Well, they need to be diagonal.
She says that all the time.
When I go in that parking lot, I act ugly. And it's because of the parking. It's terrible.
From the middle of the Walmart parking lot, if you walk straight back and straight to the milk counter, so that's about where the milk is, right? And so that's assuming that you could park right in that row and that you didn't have to, zigzag or do anything like that. But straight from the middle of the parking lot to the milk counter is 435 feet. You walk 435 feet to get milk in Walmart. 435 feet from Onions is this circle. You can walk 2 whole blocks downtown for the same, in most cases, that's across the street. So like from the back parking lots, it's not even to the milk counter if you walk around and go to Onions.
Exactly. So I need y'all to stick up for us on Facebook when people are complaining about the parking.
And I normally also like to point out at this point too, when people kind of talk about parking or when parking comes up, is Main Street used to be and I think we talked about this kind of early on. You remember Main Street used to be the highway, because Cedar Street didn't get built till 1955 through 58. So prior to 136 being built and Cedar Street being built, Main Street was actually the state highway. It had 4 lanes of traffic and parallel parking.
I can't do that.
So up until the 1960s, Main Street had parallel parking. And all these,
yes.
All of our seniors, they're filled with a lot of wealth of knowledge and, a lot of good, and, they love talking about, well, back in the day when Main Street was, till the city took all the parking away. Well, the glory days that they talk about are like the 40s and 50s, right? In the 40s and 50s, Main Street had parallel parking.
They all hated it then.
There was no parking on Main Street in the 40s and 50s when you talk about how great it was and all the stores were busy. So the parking is not what drove the customers out. There are a whole lot of things that went into that impact, but they didn't have angled parking until the 60s, and by then it was already starting to transition. Some of the pictures that we put on Facebook here a while back is the city took pictures of every block of storefronts before they did the Main Street renovation put the Serpentine in. Many of the stores that everybody remembered had already closed before the city even did the Serpentine pattern. So JCPenney's was already gone. Mangel's was pretty much on the way out. Woolsworth would be closed within 5 years. So the Serpentine didn't kill it. If anything, I think that helped us keep as much downtown as we still do have downtown. And so,
I can remember doing downtown growing up. We did downtown. I remember the shoe place that you went, because I would run, and it has like one of them has like a roll in it.
hmm
Well, like
Huh?
Brown's was right over here.
Right, but there was one farther down.
It was the old
there.
J.C. Penney's building.
And it-
hmm
Yeah.
'Cause I can remember running in it.
Yeah.
In the deals, but we shopped downtown.
Yeah, and so I mean, parking and and main streets, especially today, are more pedestrian centered. Which even Main Street was back then. If you found a parking spot, you parked there, and then you didn't leave. You walked up and down, and you did everything else on foot. And so that's kind of what we're trying to get to again. The downtown revitalization plan, it's really embraced the dragging Main theme, from everybody. But when they talk about dragging Main, they don't necessarily mean in the vehicle. It's about making those places, and we don't want we don't want an experience to where you pull up to the one business, you get out of your car, you go in, you get your thing, you get back in your car, and you leave. Downtown should be multiple businesses and multiple visits, because if you're going to stop at more than one place, you're not going to want to get out and repark every time just to go another half block. You're going to want to walk because it's going to be quicker. And so when we talk about dragging Main in our downtown plans, that's what we're talking about, is giving you more reasons to go to more places during your visit. But parking,
It's not the problem.
and back then we didn't have the nice parking lots back in the back blocks like we had either. And like, I laugh about Brown's shoe. I went to Brown's all the time as a little kid. I don't ever remember going in the front door, which is good because the boys' shoes were right there on the back door. You walked down the little hallway to the little storeroom, and you got right there, and there were the Air Jordans. So I never wanted to go to all the women's shoes up in the front that you could see through the windows. You want to go right there to the Air Jordans. And so we've got to get back a little bit. And I think if you talk to all those old people, a lot of them, you went in the back door.
Yeah, you did.
And nobody thought anything about it.
We probably didn't even really realize what a lot of the front doors even
Looked like.
Because if you're just gonna go to that, you did park in the back.
And it's funny, and like now as we talk about, renovating or enhancing Main Street again, everybody's like, well, by God, you screwed it all up when you put the Serpentine in, and now you want to tear all that up. You just did that. Yeah, 1969, which has now been, almost 60 years ago. So when we talk about needing to do things downtown, it's not because we want to change it. It's because the concrete's flaking away and it's failing and things don't last forever. I think it is really hard, in the scheme of things to realize, how long ago that's actually been. So the Serpentine was put in and pretty much open to the public in late 1969.
In our talks with the Historical Commission, they tell us all the time that there are so many cities across America that are paying millions and millions of dollars to get that exact serpentine pattern.
I like it.
And it's naturally slows traffic down, and then just the aesthetics of it. I mean, it looks great.
Well, like, I can remember walking along the bricks.
Mhm.
So today even, I came up here to pay water bills, and I had Junie, my granddaughter.
Yes.
And we walked, and I let her walk it because that's a core memory.
Yes.
Core memory for me. I want it to be a core memory for her. Nana stopped to take the time to do this with me.
And there's definitely some improvements we need. Like, the black brick is no longer, necessarily, in style. It's hard for us to get it. So every time a freaking car runs into it, you can't hardly match it, So there's some other reasons and the things to do some things. I mean, we need to replace sidewalks and make them smoother. We probably need to take out some of the bush planters so that you can have more space for seating and outdoor activities. And so, but, when we look at, and we need more lighting, it
Yes.
needs to be especially pedestrian friendly. And so those are things we're looking at. But when we look at funding, and I know a lot of people think we're going to straighten it. That's an idea, and everybody thinks we're getting ready to turn dirt. It's not funded. It's still something that, it's just kind of an idea through all of our planning. We did apply for a downtown revitalization grant. We didn't quite make the cut this year, but we're eligible for that every year. So I think at some point we'll get that, but we can redo 2 blocks of Main Street, keeping the Serpentine, versus if we straighten it, that same amount of money gets you 1 block. And I will also just say, when we talk about that, planters, some of these planters need to be changed, and while we don't necessarily want to get rid of trees, we might have to trade some of those, but just remember, trees don't live forever. A lot of people think they live forever, and so some of them have already died, and so we'll do our best to leave as many immature of them in, but a lot of them, the roots have pushed, like the flower beds, the brick, inside the brick is a metal box, and so the brick is actually facing a metal box. and that metal has started to rust, and the roots are starting to push through it. They're getting into the stormwater system down below and getting into there. So there's some other issues that, you know, might impact, you know, when we keep a tree or when we redo something, if we have to get it out and put a tree back. Now, I will say I'm smart enough that if we have to replace a tree, we're not going to put a 3-year-old tree little stick in its place. We will make sure that we've got enough budget money in the project, you know, to put a pretty decent tree. You know, it's not going to be a 60-year-old tree, but, you know, it might be a 10 or, you know, a decent sized tree. But when we say that, like I said, it's not just the tree. If that metal is all rusted away, when we take the brick off, there's nothing to hold the planter in place. And so eventually, if we don't fix that, the trees, it's all the dirt's going to come out and the tree's going to fall down anyway. And if you see all of that, you know, we need some people with a little bit of long-term vision to understand that the short-term, you know, change or short-term, you know, little less leaf will be worth the long-term gain.
Because when did they do this part? In the 60s?
Mm-hmm.
And then when did they change? They changed some more of it because, like with the little gazebo thing, there used to be that round thing because
The tulip.
Were tulips.
we had they put the big Christmas things up on it. So when was that? The
Wanda did
70s?
Wanda Klaus replaced the tulips in the early 2000s. It's a metal pole and had an inverted concrete bottom. And I didn't know they were tulips until the freaking historical commission brought this, and they've got some pictures from another city that had them. Well, they had 2 of them together, so you could actually they actually kind of look like tulips. One was that they were at different heights, and in here, if you come look, you can. Are they on this one? Yeah, because that's downtown Borger. But where's it's on the other one.
Should be. There we go.
Yeah.
That's what they're proposing, going back with some of those, but maybe in plastic or a little more shapely. But what was there is like those.
Yeah.
And see, like those, when they're paired together, they look a little better. We just had random one-offs. And originally, that's where the speakers were on them.
Yeah.
So they had music going downtown from the speakers. Wanda put the gazebos in the 90s, which was the early 2000s, which is the same time we put the first pass-through park after that building caught fire and burned down. And so that was Ainsman's Hardware is what was there that actually burned down. And then they had made some change because, like, I'm not for sure when they put in all the green, you know, because the planters didn't always have bushes in them. They had other stuff in them. And, you know, you used to have the fountains. And so in the 70s, I think, is when they did away with fountains because the kids were putting soap in it.
Foam party.
And so you had some issues with things like that. So it's definitely, you know, matured over the time, but like this is it when it first opened,
Okay.
and then here it was a couple years later. So
Yeah, we definitely came.
and then, you know,
after
that in the
We've been here about 20
early
years.
2000s or late 90s too is when the street lights came out.
Very good.
Because I think we talked about that in the public works section.
I still stop at 4. There's no stop sign. I stop.
I do.
And I'm like-
I do a lot of times too.
Everyone's like, what are you doing? I'm like,
Well, and you know, our goal would be to have enough, you know, to get enough traffic and enough foot traffic downtown again that you could put the stop sign back at 4th Street. But
And so their idea was kind of just keeping what we have, but enhancing it and making it flow a little bit better. So like Garrett said, having a little bit better pedestrian-friendly sidewalks and kind of aligning, say, like the pass-through park entrance to the crosswalk so that you can come directly from the crosswalk or the parking lot through the pass-through park and along the crosswalk.
it's already there a little bit. Like what you see here is what they're talking about. Losing a couple more parking spots to add some more like seating area or gathering areas. You know, I know we might have some pushback from there, but remember, we got plenty of parking. It's just a matter of how close do you want to be. But the other thing is you can line up the crosswalk with the pass-through park by pushing all this stuff just a little bit over. And this is where that one planter is. It kind of needs to be redone anyway. And then you get more sidewalk space by taking out the handicap spaces over here in that curve right now. That's not compliant anymore. So it won't meet standards. You've got to have the, you know, van accessible and stuff like that.
Actually, people are pretty good about not parking there. So yeah, that would open up a lot.
And so then we get a little more sidewalk in that curve too, because we you know, it doesn't have to be so extreme because you don't have to have the space for the. And I think that would give the flow of traffic a little. I think they've done a good job on that. I mean, like what we're talking about is, you know, they've added some low lighting in the new wall. I think if we replace the wall, we'll probably go back with like the split white stone that's at the New Pasture Park or on the side of Johnson Park and at the Dome and at the stadium. That's kind of the consistent material we're trying to use. That split stone like that is generally more timeless than, brick goes through phases, it seems like, which color bricks are good and which colors aren't. I mean, red was really popular in the 90s. Now everybody's covering it with white paint to make the little German Schmiel thing, which was really popular back in the 40s. That's now popular again. So,
And so this is the Newman and Bailey building. Do y'all remember when Newman and Bailey was here? And so they actually, I don't know if y'all ever knew this, but they actually have self-proclaimed, we don't know if it's true or not, but we're gonna say it, this oldest escalator in Texas. And so there's actually an escalator on the side that's behind like a closet door, and they were talking about kind of bringing that back and putting, yeah, it's like right when you walk in to the right. Yeah, it's crazy. And this actually used to be C.R. Anthony's. That's why they kind of made this named Anthony's. And then this is the Cezanne's building. That was a jewelry store. And so they kind of paid homage to that with calling it the Vault. So just imagining the possibilities. And so next we're going to talk about, okay, how are we even going to do this? How is this possible? So this is a tool for development that was created in, I think, 2018, 2019, and it's called a TIRZ. So not like tears, like crying, TIRZ, T-I-R-Z. So it's a tax increment reinvestment zone. And so what they do is they freeze the taxable value of the zone. Well, first you have to draw the zone. So that's kind of the zone that they have created. You freeze the taxable value of that. So the taxable value was around 55 million. And then any improvements to the area, the increment of the tax that's going up gets to be put into a fund that can then be reinvested back into the zone to help increase property values.
and the nice thing about this is we talked a little bit this way early on when we talked about finance. We talked about the TIF fund and all that stuff. The nice thing for us is the city participates 100% into that zone. So 100% of our O&M tax goes into the fund. The county participates 100%. So 100% of the county taxes on the increment go into that fund. And the school district participates at 100%, which is normally what's unusual is to get in a school district to participate. But so 100% of their O&M tax goes in. So between the city, the county, and the school tax, that means about 80% of our tax bill can go into the tiers. And so like when we're talking about like, let's just, as we'll do something big to make it easier to understand, but like the Borger Hotel, right? So right now it's on the tax roll for $75,000. It's going to take about $15 to $20 million to renovate it. If we get somebody to come do that, its new value is going to be $20 million. So the increment on that building is $19,925,000. So the tax collected by the county, the school district, and the city on $19,925,000 will come into the tiers, and then we can use that as an incentive. So we can say, hey, we will reimburse 100% of your taxes for the next 10 years. Or we will agree to use that money to improve the sewer line or the water line or something like that if we need to do that. And so that's a big idea just to see how it is. But each year, the increase from the base value, the value over $5 million goes into the tiers. And so it's a way to take the value that gets reinvested in the zone and then give us money to reinvest back into the zone. And so the theory is that without the reinvestment, the zone would, let's just say, over 30 years, the zone would have grown, the values would have grown 10% without the tiers. With the tiers and the reinvestment going back in after 30 years, the zone's value grows by 60%. So then at the end of the 30-year term, when the tiers goes away, now all the taxing entities get the benefit of that 60% increase instead of the benefit of that 20% increase that would have happened without the reinvestment.
Amarillo, this is a lot of the things, this is how they've done a lot of their downtown redevelopment is through their tiers.
And they do that like Bell Helicopter, something similar.
The EDC invested with Bell Helicopter. They're down. The city of Amarillo has 3 tiers. So they've got their downtown tiers, and they've got what they call, the new one is the Eastern Gateway tiers, which is what they use to help offset some of Buc-ee's. Because all the Buc-ee's is in the Eastern Gateway tiers, that Road Ranger's in the Eastern Gateway tiers. And so that they use that to try to help direct where the development goes. For us, it's a little like in a big city, it's, hey, you can go over there, but if you go on Sansi, we're not helping you at all. You're on your own. But hey, if you want to come build that over here where we want you to build it because we need some redevelopment, we can help you if you come over to this part of town. And so that's kind of the deal with us. Like, we don't want to tiers on West Wilson Street. West Wilson Street's got Walmart and Rose, you've got the traffic. We're not going to need to do much help there. But downtown, is a good example of that. And part of this is our new housing out there with Yucca Estates and stuff, something like that, and stuff like that, because that's one of the things that was drawing the school district to want to participate too, because they need housing just as much as everybody else do, because they need some place for the teachers to live and, some newer housing to get, teachers to want to come move here. And so the thinking with the tiers is we can direct and kind of have a little more incentive, which in like downtown, and we talk about that, one of the biggest barriers sometimes is, an older building is just more expensive. If somebody wants to come downtown, they may or may not be able to afford it. But then at the other time, you can get cheaper rent, or the buildings sell for really cheap, which then turns them into people buying them for things that they shouldn't be buying them for. And so those are some of the things that we hope to be able to address with the tiers. I will say the other thing with Amarillo's tiers was in place. Their tiers has been in place almost 20 years now. And so it took them 12 to 13 years before they really started seeing a lot of the redevelopment and being able to invest into the Polk Streetscapes and helping Crush and Brew Pub and all that, and the hotel and all that stuff that's going down there. So we started in 2018, we're 8 years in, and so now we're making about $170,000 a year on it. So now I won't steal the thunder completely, but we got a little bit of money to work with now, finally. But it takes time.
Yeah, I think right now, as far as at the end of 2025, we had 486,000 around there in there. Not a lot, but we're working with it. We're a lot better off than if they hadn't done this. So definitely thankful for foresight. Which brings us to the Main Street Momentum Grant. This took about a year to write, of just getting research and kind of boots on the grounds, talking with the property owners, talking with the business owners, seeing like, hey, like what are y'all's barriers? What barriers do we keep seeing? And it really comes back to those things. These buildings, they can't afford to buy them, renovate them, and start a business. We don't really have many legacy businesses left. They've all kind of died off or they've sold, and then the grandkids really didn't want to do it. So a lot of our businesses are first generation business owners. And so this grant allows improvements to be made to the building. So if you took the building and shook it, if it stays in the building, that's what you can use it on. So like roof replacement, roof repair, fire, life safety, code compliance for your mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrades. And then historic preservation, so redoing or making the facade better. Weatherproofing and energy efficiency, so getting new windows put in. Asbestos, the dirty word, the problem with a lot of things. So it can help address that. And then also like ADA accessibility. A lot of these buildings are multi-story, so that requires ADA accessibility, which can get really expensive. One of the things that we kind of run into a lot with the EDC grants are their reimbursements. So if you don't kind of have the money up front, it's kind of hard to participate in that, which is what the majority of these people fall into that category. So this is kind of a direct pay to vendor grant, and they just have to have like a percentage of compensation. So the owner, I want to say the highest it goes is 15%. So the owner, the building property owner would put in 15%, and then the TIRZ grant could cover the rest. That building that you see up there, that is the Miller building. That used to be the Century 21 building where Mr. Ralph White used to be. So that is the top floor, or second, sorry, yeah, the second floor. So gutted, ready to go. Just need somebody to go in there and give it a little love.
And what our goal is try to remove as many barriers as we can, right? So we can't remove every barrier and we can't make it completely easy, but the tiers, that's the one thing about the tiers is there's less restrictions on that money. What hopefully came out a little bit, a week ago is, there are some more restrictions to EDC money just based on state law and how that is used. We've got a little bit of flexibility in some of that stuff, but they do require credit checks. They do require all their contracts have to have clawback by state law, so there has to be some sort of performance standard and some sort of clawback, and they generally are reimbursement grants. They can be some sort of loan, but there again, it has to be clawed back, so we can do certain things with that, but they do have a little more restrictions on the economic development law to where the TIRZ has a lot more. There are no requirements for clawbacks and things like that with the TIF funding. And when we say TIF, tax increment financing. But it does open up the doors, and so it's making sure that we, kind of can stack or get things to play together to where, we can hit those differences. And this, we're less worried about clawbacks and with direct pay to vendor because anything they do is going to be an improvement to the building, which will be there for whoever owns or operates the building anytime in the future, right? While we might be helping a business owner and, they're going to get the benefit out of it, really the true winner is the building.
And we put some requirements in the grant. So like you have to have an update Google profile. Like you have to go talk with Spencer at the EDC. So there are like educational steps that we put into that grant that if you want to use that money that you have to do to kind of help get them to be successful. But like Garrett said, it is a lot less restrictive than EDC.
Because like Spencer is did she talk about leading edge last week some? And that's a really good service for us because it's hard for us to tell somebody your idea sucks and it's And so Spencer has a really good way of trying to get you to put numbers to it, and he makes you come to that realization on your own. He can either help you tweak your model to where it can make money, or you can see that it doesn't make money before it doesn't work.
And if you do have a good business idea, he can help you scale it. So he does some weird things with some spreadsheets. I don't understand them, but he can make you see kind of the pathway to, okay, if I'm starting, this is what this can look like down the road.
And he has really good resources, which is why we make everybody go through it. If any of y'all have an idea or want to go talk to him, I mean, he's over there. That EDC pays for him. It's free for everybody. It's free for the consultation. You just have to schedule time with him on a Wednesday.
Trying to get it where Main Street is it just, to get the Main Street closes at 5 o'clock. How hard is that for everybody? That's
Girl, trust me, you're preaching to the choir.
Right, but that's what I mean is like, everybody does. Well, I want to have a job and I want to be successful, but at the same time, I want off at 4 o'clock.
Well, and that's.
I want to work till 5. And
Are you talking about Business Bootcamp?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Am I jumping the gun?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Well, so part of that, I've been in the city for like 20 years now, and when I was even on the council in 2005, the council even back then had a whole, what we used to always say is the problem with downtown merchants is they think we owe them our business instead of them thinking they have to earn it. And so you still, if you're in business, nobody owes you anything. You have to earn it. That's problem number one. Problem number two is we're in a community that was founded on get rich quick. And people want the cheapest, easiest, quickest way to make the most amount of money with the least amount of effort. And so, that's where we see people come in all the time with plans. They want to open a restaurant. They want to put in a commercial range unit and some folding tables and chairs. And, they think that's going to be a restaurant. And, a restaurant isn't just, that works if you have got like super amazing food that is different than anywhere else. But I can tell you, if the only equipment is a stovetop Fry Daddy from Walmart and a residential range, your food isn't that good because you don't have the space and the place to do it. And so that's a problem. And then the other problem that I see a lot is people wanting passive income. They want to pay people to do all the work and they just want to sit back and take the income. And the problem is most downtown businesses are not passive income. A restaurant is not a passive income business. If you're not there in the business, you
got to be there.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be there. You can't make enough money to pay the person unless you've got multiple stores, there's not money for you not to work in that store. It hits your profit margin, your bottom line. And so that's the problem. So what we see, and what my kind of soapbox on this is that a lot of times the people that have money to do business downtown, they want passive income. They've got a lot of money, they just want to invest in the business or they don't want to work. The people that have the work ethic and have the ability don't have the credit or don't have the finances to get the business started. And so that's more that barrier that we're trying to figure out how to reduce. So part of that is the Business Bootcamp. The 5 main, that's between the Chamber, the city, and the EDC. The EDC sponsoring $5,000 for 5 top ranked businesses that are participating are getting $5,000 to help go into their business, into marketing or equipment or things like that. But they're getting pretty much a crash course the curriculum is based like an associates in business. And so we're trying to get some people some education to, make their business model more successful. And then as we talk about space programming, from pop-ups or incubator space to, we're trying to find ways to get some of those homegrown businesses to grow a little bit and help them get some finances so that they can, have the money to rent the next space and then rent the space and get some more finances. So now maybe you'll apply for a loan.
Creating essentially a downtown entrepreneur pathway. So we got to lay the infrastructure so we can create that pathway for these businesses. Business Bootcamp has been the best thing that we have seen. It really is amazing. While only 5 businesses are getting incentives, we have about 13 that come regularly. And when you get all these business owners in one room, the conversations that happen are amazing. The brainstorming that happens is amazing. It's once a month, and each month is a different course. So we start off with business planning. We did finance. We had Nathan Allison, he's the president of Happy State Bank. He came and did a session on business financing. And then we do marketing. E-commerce is one we just did. Next, we're doing hiring, like how do you hire the right person? Workforce development. But, you know, giving these tools and empowering our local people to really engage in the business. Another really great thing that we've seen and we are like so excited about is Seat at the Table. So Seat at the Table is a standing quarterly event. We have it once every quarter. We essentially have the chamber, the EDC, you know, Borger Main Street. We have marketing. We have planning and development, code enforcement, utility billing, fire marshal's office. So every person that you would probably have to talk to start a business, we get them all in one room. One of the things that we kept hearing was, oh, well, so-and-so told me this. Well, so-and-so told me this. And there's a lot of running around. Well, I had to go here and now I have to go here. Well, this creates a transparency. We're all in one room. We're all getting the same information. We're all able to collaborate when a situation comes up so we can brainstorm and create a solution for them. But also, it's not as intimidating. I mean, I know City Hall can sometimes feel intimidating to people. We also have an on-site Spanish translator. So if there is like a language barrier, we have somebody there that can help translate and just create a more welcoming environment to where they feel like they have a team of professionals on their side. That was like the greatest thing I heard after our first seat at the table. This guy was like, wow, I like feel like I have y'all on my team. Like I got these people on my side. And that's exactly what we want them to feel like. So we feel like educational tools along with financial tools are what's going to help make these businesses last. Because we don't want a bunch of businesses opening and only being open for a year and then closing down. Because they didn't either know their finances or they didn't do the market research and didn't realize there's 50 other stores that sell the exact same thing. And just going through the educational pieces of it.
Like they probably talk about it, plan development, code enforcement too. You know, a lot of the problems and a lot of the reason people hate P&D is because they come in after they know what they're going to do. And then we have to tell them no because they didn't come and ask first. You know, what can I do or how do I need to do this? Everybody comes in with their plan because they're here, this is what I'm going to do. I need a permit. Oh, wait, you can't do that. What? You know, we're here. They'll answer any questions. You know, we're trying to get people engaged earlier in the process so that we can be that collaborator and help them and not be the
Back down.
Mm-hmm.
The no person.
Right. And if it's not ever no, it's or it's maybe no, we can't do that, but let's figure out what you can do, or let's figure out a plan to help get you there. Maybe you're not ready for that, but let's figure out how we can get you ready. So we're very big.
To help them in another area that they didn't know about, that then that would free that part up to go to that part.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't think in 3D chess.
Exactly. And like I said, we just really want to get out to the community that we are a resource and we are here for them. And we want to empower our local people. We want them to open up businesses and be successful. And a big part of that is the education. So another big part of our promotional, again, back to those 4 points, promotions, is our Behind the Doors video series. It kind of started as a random idea one day and it is taken off. We do one every Friday. Thank you. I like them too. It's
I
fun.
didn't get to watch last Fridays. I was like, oh, I got to go back, and I still hadn't. But I am going to. I like to watch them.
So how we do this is we coordinate with the property owners. We get a time scheduled with them. We go. Scott, who's recording this down in the basement, shout out. He comes with his camera and we do a walkthrough. We mic up and we just talk with the business or the property owners while we're going through. So we get their side of their history with the building, what the, probably like the features of the building are, what the story is. And then I go to the museum. And the museum, if y'all have ever been, they have an archive room, which is amazing. And it has all of the city directories since like 1936. And so we find, and luckily back then, they have a whole section by address. So I can go find the address and see what was in that building in that year. So I go through literally every one up until I think the last one they have is like 2018. So I go through all of them up till 2018 and kind of make a list of what was even in that building. I don't know if any of y'all are on the, you're from the Borger, Texas Win page on Facebook. So a cool thing I do too is if I see like a business name, I'll go in on Facebook and search that. And then I just read the stories that people put on there. Like our last one was on the Battered Whisk, and it used to be Joe Richard's record store. And one of the stories that I thought was so cool, this lady was like, I remember they had the biggest Great Dane the biggest Great Dane dog that would just sit and stare at you on the counter when you would come check out. And then he would go into his little station wagon and just be in the back. So stuff like that. I think just I think these buildings have their own personalities. And so it's up to us to tell that story so that we can keep them alive and keep people interested so that we can also imagine what it could be. So that's kind of the basis of Behind the Doors. We talk about the history, and then we talk about what it is now, even if it's not pretty, even if it's junked out, even if there's a hole in the wall. We talk about what it is now, but then also what could it be, you know, and sparking interest. It's crazy because those are a list of the views of the videos, and our highest one was 50,000. Borger is 12,000 people. So we're reaching a way bigger audience than just Borger. And who knows, maybe somebody in Dallas or somebody in Kentucky is sitting there watching these videos and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna check this out. Maybe I would like Borger.
Well, it's amazing how many people have been or come through or stayed or worked or done something in Borger. I mean, it's amazing where you go and somebody has some sort of connection. And so,
Well, like you had your grandparents. I had my grandmother. My grandmother owned the bar. It used to be Jean's Bar, the hitching rail.
Yeah, okay.
I tell everybody it's the first time I was naked in public.
Because you were a baby, huh?
It's the first time my grandmother see me, and they were coming through town because I was born out of town, and undid me right there on a pool table. And everyone's like, they're listening to my story, and they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, well, what? That's part of that history of that building. You know, we used to go up and clean it with my parents on the weekend.
For sure. And telling that story. And I think a lot of people here are nostalgic about Main Street. Like you said, they remember getting dropped off as kids. Their parents would kick them out, drop them off on Main Street and be like, I'll be back at 5 to come pick you up. And you just got to wander Main Street. So just capturing that nostalgia and making people remember they do have stories here, and we do have a rich culture here. So next is community engagement and events. This is what me and Deidre tag team all the time, and Katie on our team, and Mackenzie. We want to improve quality of life. So we really want to create a space where people feel welcome, where there's not, you know, that old adage, oh, there's nothing to do in Borger. Well, I know, I can tell you there is stuff to do because we're there every weekend doing them. Yes, including this Saturday, Freedom on Main. I don't know if any of y'all have littles, but we have like a bike parade that we do. It's at 11. And we start at the museum, and all the kids like put little flags on their bikes, and Donnie Davis, the chief of police, gets on his big motorbike and leads them down Main Street and back, and it is the cutest thing you'll ever see. We have like a foam lady come, but this is just a few of the events that we do yearly. So Mom Prom, we use Mom Prom as a big fundraiser for us so that we can continue our shenanigans of all the events and stuff, and it's awesome. Another new one that we did this year in collaboration with the school and the county was Ripple Effect. It was kind of like the Shattered Dreams drunk driving course where we took and simulated a drunk driving accident for the high school seniors. Really impactful, really awesome to see. Freedom on Main, which is the one I talked about just now. The Halloween Carnival we do at the pool. It's always a good time. We do a holiday sip and shop. So we get a bunch of people and get a bunch of businesses participating, and it's their job to provide their customer with a free beverage, alcoholic or not, and provide a snack and a special deal. And so me and Deidre load them up in the van and we drive them around to all the different stores. And so many times we hear, well, I didn't even know this was here. And that just reassures us that we're doing the right thing, that we're connecting people with what they need to see. Seat at the table that we talked about is once every quarter. One of our favorite ones that we just started last year is Moonlight Meditation Sound Bath.
You can't tell Garrett kind of just gives us a little creative freedom. We also mix that a little bit with just asking for forgiveness versus permission on some of these events. But hey, they work, and they're fan favorites.
but I'm normally, we talked about that, I think, a little earlier on. We talked about our values and stuff. And, you know, we talked about, you know, me being at the police department and pulling the record every time. And, you know, the reason we did is because we just always done it that way. So, I mean, I do encourage trying new things. What I don't encourage is continuing to do things that don't work. And so, you know, we want to try new things, and trust me, we've got, for every one that works, there were probably 4 that didn't.
Yep.
But that's fine. I mean, that's part of the process. The only way, and I know I reiterated that, you know, in 2 of our core values, we talk about mistakes. I expect mistakes to happen. I do not chastise and discipline mistakes. If it's the same mistake over and over and over, it's now not a mistake, it's a failure. And we don't want failures. But mistakes are fine. People are going to make mistakes, and a lot of times your best lessons are learned when you make a mistake. Sometimes they just laugh and move on, and I hope they learned.
He loves us. Another really awesome one that we do is reality check. Deidre actually came up with the idea for this event, and we create a giant game of life in the ballroom of the Dome. So you have your car insurance booth, you have your banking booth, you have your tax booth, and we kind of pick all of the kind of different, I guess, businesses or organizations that you would encounter in real life. And these students, it's the high school seniors, they get a packet with a life already established to them. So they have a salary, they have whether they're married or not, do they have kids, do they have insurance, and they get this little life. And then our local banks come, they set up, and they give them a checkbook register. So they're at least seeing a checkbook register. I don't think any of them would have ever seen them if we didn't do that. And they have to go through every booth. It doesn't matter what order they do. But it's funny because then we have either our sheriff or our police chief come around, and he'll follow them around. Stop, did you go get insurance? Well, it sees you have a car. Did you not stop and go get insurance? No. Ticket. And they have to deduct that from their checkbook. So they know, okay, well, maybe I need to go get insurance first before I go do this. There's a chance booth, so they have to draw, and it could be like, hey, you broke your leg. Go pay the medical place $10,000. Real life experiences. And I don't know if y'all seen our video that she posted on Facebook about it, but it is hilarious listening to these kids because they're just funny.
The best part's just walking around and listening to them.
Yeah.
Because it's like this shit, the best one I think I heard was, these kids are taking all my money. It's amazing how that works.
My favorite was, I got $50 extra. The casino gonna see me. Another big one that we love is Boomtoberfest. I definitely encourage y'all all to come out to that. It's always the second weekend of October. It's a 3-day event. Friday night we start downtown. We have live music happening. We have food trucks, and at 8 o'clock we do a burnout contest, and it is awesome. If you've ever been to one, you know people flock to that in hundreds, and it's so fun. And then Saturday we start at the airport, and we do a car show and a fly-in, so essentially like a car show for planes. And then that evening we do a battle of the bands. So we've actually had a ton of registrants from all over the country. I can guarantee y'all people know where Borger is, at least the music industry does, because I mean we have from this side of the country to that side of the country. The next is Second Saturdays of Summer. It happens every second Saturday, and it's dragging Main. So you're encouraged to drag Main. We keep it open, and we block off the side streets. We have sand volleyball. We reuse the sand from Beach Bash, and we set up basketball goals, food trucks. The Farmers and Makers Market is there. And so we have a lot of local home-based businesses come out. And it's just a really great time. A good time if you're a single person, if you're a family person, if you're young, old, it does not matter. You will have a good time there. And then our most popular one is the Tall Tales Tour. Y'all, this one is crazy. So we open up for these tickets June 1st, and they are sold out by noon that day. Yeah, it is. They go fast. And a lot of people are just like, well, why don't y'all do more? Well, just to get this event going, we have to coordinate with all these different landowners. They make us sign waivers and paperwork about this thick so we don't sue them if anything happens. I mean, there's extreme coordination that goes into this event that I don't think people realize. So, and also these landowners are letting us on their land for free. They're just letting us do this. And so we really value that relationship with them, so we would never want to take advantage of that. The fact that they let us do it once a year, we are happy with. So just a lot of different things to help improve quality of life. Not only for our citizens, but for people visiting. We have a huge we call it industrial tourism. So, you know, all the contractors that come through town. And it was hilarious. I have a rental property that I was renting out to a contractor, and we were doing the burnout contest, and I look over and there he is, and he is just having the time of his life. And he was like, I didn't know y'all did this here. This is amazing. Like, he was just having so much fun. And it just made me giggle because a grown man was just smiling from ear to ear at that burnout contest. You could have thought he was a kid in the candy shop. And then another big thing, like I said, is partnerships. That is our main thing, relationships, building networks. We don't have all the answers and we don't pretend to have all the answers, but I bet I know somebody who does. Let's call them. So getting people together, finding out different resources, and then connecting people. A lot of these Main Street buildings are huge. It's probably going to take more than one business to go in them. So helping find synergy between businesses, what businesses could go together that go in there? What resources are they? And everybody knows different people. You never know who's going to know somebody that has the answer that you need. So I would say we're definitely stronger together. I always say nobody's going to come and save us here in the Panhandle. It's up to us to build ourselves up together. And then just community pride and ownership. Loving where you live, taking pride in where you live, and really, I mean, we got to keep this place good for the next generation. We're only passing through. And then just increasing opportunities for our citizens. So that's my spiel. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Pretty informative, so.
Thank you. Well, like I said, so the Borger Main Street project, we meet every fourth Monday at 4 at the Dome. So if any of this piqued your interest, or you've been looking at a way to kind of get involved or stay connected or are just curious about what we're doing, come to a Main Street meeting. I promise you there'll be a chair for you. We'll welcome you with open arms, and just kind of the camaraderie that you get when you put people, like-minded people in a room. It's amazing what solutions you can come up with. Well, thank you. I'm like, Deidre, your turn.
All right, so pretty much everybody in here knows me. My name is Deidre Thomas. I am the Public Engagement Coordinator for the City of Borger. So my position, kind of like Nicole's, is a little bit of a hybrid position. We do a little bit of everything. At the core of my position is definitely the obvious, public engagement, so communications, internal and external. But really it's just building meaningful relationships between the City of Borger and our citizens and our taxpayers. Like, no need to see that.
Because I kind of want to talk, so like, you know, because like we started communication back when Eddie was here, but when I kind of took over, I kind of reframed it from communication to engagement. Because, you know, what we're doing, and like we talked about, you probably heard it multiple times now over the session of all these, is that partnership with the community or partnership with whoever. So communication to me is very non-personal. You know, we can get information out there, that's communication and getting information to you, but we want to do more than that. We want to engage with you and we want you to be part of the information and part of the community. And so this is not just communication as such, it is really engagement. I think that's important, and I think that's what's driving a lot of the positive feedback and positive progress that you see in the community. So my little 2 cents in engagement.
It's really true though. I mean, I have it up here. Public engagement isn't just the city talking, it is the city listening. It is a two-way street. The platform is not intended for us to just tell you what we're doing and what you're gonna do. It is to get to know our citizens, to get to know our residents, what they need from us, what their problems are, what they would like to see, you know, what their goal is for the future. Informing citizens about city services and decisions, listening to community concerns and feedback, building trust through transparency, encouraging participation in local governments, you know, Citizens Academy, that's exactly what that does. Creating opportunities for residents to be involved. A lot of the information that citizens receive is not from us, and it's not for a lack of trying, but they're just hearing things secondhand, thirdhand from people that really don't understand what they heard to begin with. They didn't take the time to read an article or to read, you know, a budget. They just started making assumptions, and then they started telling everybody else. Same thing with, you know, like Garrett was talking about with Main Street. We put out in a comprehensive plan, you know, a possibility of, okay, if we realigned it, this is what it could look like. We could keep the Serpentine pattern, and the next thing we know, we're gonna pull up all the trees, we're killing everything, we're no more parking, we're gonna destroy all the businesses, and it's like, did you read it? Did you read the plan though? There's nothing that's been identified for funding streams. It's literally a plan. It was just something put on paper. We would love for you to come talk to us about it. What do you want to see? And this is kind of, you know, why it matters. Great communities are built with citizens and not for citizens. We can't really tell you what your life should look like and what you should want for your city. You have to tell us. We talk a lot, Nicole and I, about Main Street, and that's, I think, kind of segues into why revitalization is so important. We want to see this big, beautiful Main Street bustling again, and we want to see the buildings activated and the storefronts open past 5 o'clock. But for the longest time, we were putting those expectations on people that don't have the means or the ability to actually get into these buildings. And so it kind of works hand in hand. We definitely want stronger neighborhoods. We want better decision making. We want increased civic pride. We want people to love where they live instead of, constantly looking at somewhere else to go or wishing they were somewhere else. We want volunteerism and community ownership. I feel like here in Borger, we struggle with civic pride and volunteerism and community ownership. People are very comfortable paying, $1,500 for a new cell phone, but they won't spend that money into maintaining, their property or their vehicles, and that's a whole other tangent, but there's a lack of community ownership. People are like, that's not my problem, that's your problem. And, they'll take the time to grab on Facebook, but they won't take the time to file or, fill out a report for a concern for a pothole. They're going to tell everybody else about it, but they're not going to actually tell the people that matter. It helps with economic development and quality of life. We want to know what you want to see and how we can make your life here better. That's why we invest into our parks and our pool and different things like that, and public engagement in itself. So these are just a few of the ways that the city communicates. So social media, Facebook, Instagram. We have a wonderful YouTube channel now, thanks to Scott. We use emergency communications. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a bit, but we use event promotions. So I'll pay $25, depending upon how long I'm going to advertise on Facebook, just to make sure everybody has a chance to see it in their algorithm. I don't ever spend over about $100 in a couple of month period. But that way, if we have an event coming up, I'll at least pay to have that advertised, so more people will see it than not. We have websites, so we have 2 different websites. We have borgertx.gov, which is it's kind of our business profile, I would say. It has financial transparency. It has every bit of information you're going to need about what the city is doing, when they're doing it, why they're doing it. And we also have visitborger.com. And that's a website that's tied to our app. So we have kind of the fun things on there, the things to do, the places to go to see, fun news articles. So that's on there. And again, that's tied to our app. The app is just Borger TX in the App Store. We also utilize forms. So we'll do surveys. We've done a community survey, and it was kind of disheartening. It's when I first started, and like 1,200 people responded. And they were the company that was doing the survey. It's a company called Poco. They were like, well, that's good. That's, you usually have about a 1% respond rate. I'm like, 1,200 people out of our 12,000 plus population responded over it was like a 3 to 6 month period where they used every means of communication, and that was all that responded. And it's like, we see more than 1,200 people at our events sometimes, and we know they have opinions. So we utilize forms, surveys, permits, agendas, meeting minutes, service requests. We also have traditional methods, so our news releases, press releases. We utilize our local media. They're fantastic. Not only, the folks here, but the folks at Amarillo are great, and we're great to work with, so they know that if they need a story, they can call us, and we're usually up to something, or we can give them something to go off of. We also do flyers, utility bill inserts, digital signage, banners. We joke all the time, the only thing we don't do is a winged pigeon. And it's just because Garrett has not allowed it. If he gave me the time, I would train him. But we try to communicate the best we can in every avenue that we possibly can. Just yesterday, we have an intern here through the summer, and I sent her off with a handful of flyers, and I said, go target high traffic places like grocery stores, anybody that has a public cork board where you can put some stuff up on there, but also people that have waiting rooms and things like that. So we have stuff posted up just about every business in Main Street. Again, grocery stores, we have stuff here. We have it everywhere we possibly can. The only thing left is for you to receive it, if that makes any sense. We also do a lot of face-to-face things. We have city council meetings. We live stream those, so if you can't be here in person, you can at least go back and watch them. We have town hall meetings every so often, especially if we have a big project coming up. We hosted one for the 10th Street reconstruction project that we shall never talk about again. You know, anytime we have anything going on where we need your input on decisions, we try to have that in person. Of course, all of our community events, Citizens Academy, Borger Main Street Project meetings, like Nicole said, they're the fourth Monday of every month. Unless there's a holiday falling on that Monday, then we do it the Monday before. And we have different business meetings. We will meet probably 3, 4, sometimes businesses a day with just our local businesses for free, giving them advice, trying to connect them to resources or providing marketing for them, kind of a marketing plan. The difference between information and engagement is kind of what Garrett was talking about. Information is just us telling citizens about a project. It's a one-way communication. It is announced. It creates awareness. We really strive for engagement. We want you to know what we're doing, but we want you to be a part of it. We ask for your input and we ask for you to interact. This is a two-way communication. So we have a conversation and we ask for participation. It's again, we're not trying to tell you what you want to do. We want you to tell us what you want us to do.
And we pay attention to comments and stuff like that. We might not respond to all of them, but we know what's going on out there. And I think we talked a little bit earlier. This is where I can kind of interject we talked about the STPs, the same people. And so, you know, we have to be careful when we talk about STPs because a lot of times what they're saying is based in truth, but they also may or may not be the majority. So, you know, we've got to get, you know, we're trying to take care of the community as a whole and not necessarily just the loudest will, but we take all of that into consideration. And so just, you know, remember there's a lot of that. So, you know, while we might not be responding, that goes into what I preface and put forward with the council, you know, and some things that we've done here lately, you know, based on some of that or based on some other feedback is we've got new regulations at Huber Park now for the parking and the trash issues that are out there. So there's finally some of that. We did some about the feral cat population, you know, after some people brought some feedback on that. We're actually probably budgeting for a trap, neuter, and release program to kind of start some of that next year. So, I mean, we do put in a lot of this stuff and we're all constantly working to improve some of that stuff based on engagement. Because with the right content that's out there, we can get that better feedback. And it's, I mean, our community is really pretty good with social media. I know that some people don't like it, but it is good because we can, yes, you'll have, you know, okay, there's that one really nasty negative comment, but there's like 12 supportive. So it kind of helps us put things in perspective too. And I will say that since we've started this, when I kind of first got over to at City Hall in 2018, when we kind of first really putting stuff out on social media, people would complain a lot on social media. Now, not so much. Because after we responded and kind of corrected some information and stuff like that, you know, nobody likes, you know, being put in their place. So now most of the uncontrolled griping only happens on, you know, our gripe pages.
Which I am blocked from.
And in most of our city or in official pages, you know, if somebody makes a derogatory comment, we don't have to comment half the time anymore because somebody is already. And that to me is how we measure successful engagement. When the community comes to your defense or the community can answer those questions, then we've got that engagement working to where we are actually educating the public.
Yeah.
You know, I love it when somebody will bitch about something. Well, they talked about that in the last council meeting. Did you not go back and watch it? It was on here. You know, and I'm like,
You're a proud papa.
I'm like, I wanted to say that, but I can't say that.
It's really, I mean, it's so true. In terms of commenting, I try to engage as much as I possibly can. And especially if I can add value or correct or add some sort of an education to something, because you don't know what you don't know. But I think too, we always talk about the 3 different types of people on social media. The ones that just comment on anything and everything. They have not been slapped in a long time or ever, and they have a false sense of confidence on the internet. And then you have people that they only comment like the positive or when there's something interesting, you know. And then you have the lurkers, and they don't comment, but they read the comments. Especially if it's something that has a lot of engagement, they're going to hit the comment and they're going to go straight down and read every single last one. And that's where, again, I don't really care how negative you are on there, but if we can add value by correcting your misinformation, I know somebody else is going to read it and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then people just start coming to our defense again, like, well, did you not catch that council meeting? Well, it's on their website. Well, they've been advertising for a month. I don't know how you didn't see that. You're being rude about this, but you know, and they kind of handle that for us.
Kind of like that, everybody, isn't it still that all the buildings on Main Street, the ones that are not being used, aren't they owned by like super rich people that just use them for tax write-offs because they don't do anything with them. They just kind of, I mean, that's
That's what everybody
story
thinks, but
behind it.
that's not the case
Yeah.
anymore. That was 20 years ago, but most
But
of
it's
the ownership
still,
is, yeah.
that is what goes right, because I'm like, oh.
And like with engagement with us too, and like the instructions and the when we talk about Boomtown Pride Empowered, that empowering is, it's important to understand your community and engage with your community in the manner in which they need to be engaged with. And so, like when we go to TML regional conferences, and I kind of helped moderate a communication one last year, a lot of cities, even real little cities, they're like, oh, well, you can't say that, or we got to be really careful about what we say. You got to be, no, there's a reason I'm not the only one that posts on social media, because I write very, very formally. And, that this community is not a formal community. So if I was the only one that ever talked on that, nobody would like it. So we have a very hardworking, more kind of blue collar community that is laid back and relaxed, and we need to engage with them in that manner. And that's where I think a lot of cities get it wrong, is they try to be too stuffy or too legalistic.
Yeah.
And so when we engage, we've got to be correct. And that's
You have to
where,
humanize it.
You wear gifts and all
That's where
sorts
SpongeBob
of little,
comes
that is engagement. I'm sorry that I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, because I get that a bigger city, it's really different in a bigger city. But like when you look at Amarillo social media engagement, it's not engagement. It is more traditional communication. It's a post that's educating. It's a video that's educating. They have automatic responses when somebody complains. Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. If you'll call this number, well, somebody would be more than happy to get back with you. And like that's all you ever see. And so much of it is scheduled, which there's nothing wrong with scheduling, but I'm not for sure that 3 days after a landfill fire is the day to have a post highlighting your solid waste team.
Or fireworks.
And I get it. In a bigger city, it is much harder, but a lot of times bigger cities will recruit and hire, journalists, for their communication teams and stuff like that. And that's fine, but that's may or may not be,
What your community
South Lake.
needs, yeah.
The richest South suburb. That probably is how they need to engage. They're probably all CEOs. If we did a funny little video, they'd be like,
It's unprofessional. Yeah.
But, in Borger, that's not the case. And so, we want to make sure that we're engaging in the means that people need to engage. And that's why there are times when a Facebook post needs a Garrett response. And, and if you go and you look close enough, you'll see you'll be able to recognize which ones are mine. But they're generally very full of a whole lot of information that there's not a single way for you to contradict. And there are times that some comment needs that, and they, like she said, somebody needs to be slapped in the face and put back in their position. Now, I do refer to myself as diplomatically blunt, so I do it nice. I don't, use that.
Do it diplomatically, yes. We really do try to humanize, though. We are all people that work behind these departments, and our work matters. What we do for our community is just that. We are doing it for our community. We live here, we work here, we raise our families here, and we are humans too. So we get it. We definitely get it. But I think just being a little more human sometimes versus a robot response is very helpful, just because they're reminded you are, the city that is full of people that are working for them that are humans. So how to get involved with some of the things we're doing? Attend city council meetings or watch them. Join an advisory board. We have Building Standards Commission. We have planning and
Adjustment, planning
yeah.
and zoning. Soon to be the official formalized Main Street Board.
Yeah. There's board positions usually available for economic development every so often. I think they have 5-year terms. 3-year terms.
5 members on 3.
Yes. So there's plenty of different ways to, and if you're not confident with your skills on some of those boards, but you feel like you're a great leader and you have value to provide, we train you. They provide training for the boards. Participate in surveys at the very minimum. Give us your feedback. Tell us what you feel like what opportunities there are, but also make sure to tell us that we're doing a good job. I love to highlight, crews like our water crew, because those those guys go out all hours of the night, all types of weather, fixing things, and they're fast at what they do. And if you look at other municipalities, anytime there's a water leak notice, everybody in the comment section just hates everybody. Oh, this city this and this city that. And when we do something like that, they know that it's going to be taken care of quickly as we possibly can, and they celebrate our folks, even just feedback.
I'll just reiterate again for probably the 12th time, I probably said this once every class I've been here, but remember, if we're doing our jobs right, our work goes unnoticed. And so that makes our mistakes and errors a little more visible, but that does not make the good work any less important.
Right.
So if you've got a good experience, we have a Boomtown Buck program. You call and give somebody a compliment, we'll give them a Boomtown Buck. They can trade that in for merchandise or a little extra gift card depending on how many Boomtown Bucks they get. So we recognize the employee with the most Boomtown Bucks in the previous year as the Buck Champion each year during our employee awards. So we do have ways of recognizing employees and trying to get some of that stuff out there, because every day, I guarantee you, most of our employees probably at least once a day do something that could easily be, well, that's not my job. And so somebody will do something extra that maybe doesn't go noticed, but you can't get and see everything.
It's true. Garrett made me relocate birds one time.
I don't think I made.
Okay, it was one of those other duties as assigned.
I think I asked you to coordinate it, and I didn't make you get out there. That was your own decision.
I had to lay eyes on it, okay, on the situation.
Maybe because you wanted the pollinator garden, so you had to get rid of the birds first.
Okay. Volunteer at events. We are never without a need for volunteers, and really that's something that our community does struggle with. We have a bunch of people that are great, but we don't have any official databases for volunteers, and that isn't just for city things, it's for school, for county, for all sorts of stuff. Follow our communication channels. We have social media, we have our websites, we utilize Everbridge for emergency alerts and for, if we're shutting off roadways and things like that. Share that too, share that information. We have an Adopt a Spot program that we're pretty excited about. So we're working with our code compliance folks on just having you come and adopt a spot. We only have in the summer up to 7, I think, employees, and really only 2 are full-time for code enforcement. And so if you look around, there's a whole awful lot of even just state right-of-ways that we take care of. The alleyways, they are constantly picking up tonnage from alleyways every single day. And so that really limits out of 7 people, again, 2 are full-time, the rest are part-time. It really limits the amount of work they can even get done. So they're like, look, we'll provide the lawnmower, the weed eater, whatever you need, if you could just adopt this area and help us out.
The state mows the right-of-ways twice a year. Once at the beginning of the season and once at the end of the season. So every other time that we mow state right-of-ways, it's because we're paying for that to go above and beyond. Can you imagine 136 if we didn't mow it 4 more times a year like we do? Imagine the clover leaf back before we started mowing it every 2 weeks when the Parks Department started doing that. And so those are all things that we do. And like I said, we talk about that is everybody, here's the level of service people want. Here's what they're willing to pay for.
Yes.
And so what we've got to try to do is balance that and get people's expectations in line with what their pocketbooks want to pay for. That's kind of the goal. One of the goals of all of this is I hope that what you're learning is that you are actually getting a pretty good value for the dollar that you pay in the city of Borger.
I think too, it really just highlight, people, I don't know if they talked about it whenever Public Works was here, but they think that we are just the end all be all for every street and highway in this city. And all we are technically responsible for is just the residential areas. So the main ins and outs of the city, so our tech stop owned state highways. But yeah, just partnering with the Adopt a Spot program. We've even kind of talked to the school, and they have a lot of kids in the booster clubs that are wanting to raise money and get money. And they were like, hey, how would y'all feel about, donating $2,000 to XYZ booster club, but they come and they mow this property for the next year every month? Sounds like a pretty good deal to us. Because on top of all of the things that our code compliance folks do, they also have to abate properties that fail to essentially comply. So they're wasting a lot of their time and resources doing other people's jobs. That should be their own. And that was kind of how we were talking before, just city ownership. I mean, doing your part or your fair share. But we're excited about that program. Keep Borger Beautiful initiative. So we're actually an affiliate of Keep Texas Beautiful. A lot of the work was done back in 2018 and 2019 with a committee for Keep Borger Beautiful, but we've carried on that legacy. We have to report every cleanup that we do. So our neighborhood cleanups, we report them every month, or if we have our youth advisory council, or sometimes it's just people needing public community service hours. They'll come in and clean up, they'll ask to help clean up a park or an area, and we get to.
Because they get to go out with Pete Loftus.
They do. Do not sign up to volunteer with him. He will work you like a dog. But that helps us stay in compliance with the affiliate status for Keep Texas Beautiful. Attend second Saturdays of summer. This year, we're really excited. This is the second year we're doing it. And last year we had good attendance, but even this first one that we had in June, we had really good attendance from all different demographics. So we didn't just have one demographic showed up. We had different age groups, different cultures. We had different, just a melting pot of everybody coming out there, and they enjoyed themselves. It even rained and nobody left. I was trying to leave, but I'm like, fine, everybody else is staying, I'll stay. And then community cleanups, kind of like I was talking about. Every month we host a neighborhood cleanup at a different neighborhood. And if you miss your neighborhood cleanup, you can call our transfer station at any time and they'll drop off a bulk refuse trailer to your location. They'll drop it off, you fill it up, and they pick it up and dump it for you. It does not get any easier than that. So if you'll notice kind of the theme, we try to recognize the barriers that people have to help us, but we also try to provide tools for them to continue to help themselves while helping us. We don't want to have an ask without a solution to what we're asking you to do.
So is that list on your contact us, like you had at the top?
Which list are you talking about?
This one, you attend, like,
Oh, yeah.
advisory boards, how do you know?
So
We normally put out, we normally recruit like once a year.
Yes.
With that, and we'll put out applications for those board positions.
That's not just a show up thing there.
No, they have terms. Normally,
Mhm.
they're normally, I think, in like the October, November timeframe. EDC's in June.
Yeah.
But some of those are coming up. Some of them have a little more, like building standards has to. The positions are divided by a couple of them have to be like building professionals, and
Right.
have to be some sort of trade or something, so they can make those decisions. But board adjustment, planning and zoning, you just kind of have to live in the community.
the Main Street project is always looking for board members that are willing to, it's literally one day a month just to commit your time. But if there's any that we listed that might be of interest to you, you can come up here at any point in time, talk to us, and if there's not an open board position or something coming open soon, they'll still at least take your name and number down, especially with like Shelby, she'll take it down. She'll make sure to contact you when there is an opening.
We're
Or
working on revamping that form, which is why I don't have a form for you. It's a little old. It's gotten, and we're working on updated bylaws for those
Yeah.
boards and stuff too.
But we still have to check out the volunteers as well.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
We're trying to find a good way to have a good database, community database for volunteers where they can sign up and indicate what what they're willing
Yeah.
to do and contact information like that. And so that's definitely something that we're mindful of and trying to figure out a good way to do that. It's still kind of in the planning.
yeah, we use signup.com a lot, especially for our reality check program and different things. And it's been helpful, but we have, even this year was kind of, I wouldn't say disappointing. We still had a fantastic event, but we did have a lot of people that had volunteered. They signed up to volunteer and then they just did not show up at all, even though we were in constant communication. And so, just having that kind of database of people you can rely on, I guess. Not saying you have to come to everything or show up and volunteer for everything, but if you do show up, we know that you're solid, or you're at least going to tell us, hey, something came up. But Nicole and I, our office is the last office on this hallway here on the left. So anytime you want information on anything, if you just want to know what's going on, feel free to come in. Our door is literally always open. We have people in there all the time. I think sometimes we're just a sounding board for some people, and vice versa. So anytime you have any need for information, or you're like, hey, I would love to be a part of this or volunteer, just come in and talk to us and we'll get you set up.
Luckily, we are small enough. They respond to Facebook Messenger or Instagram messaging. So if that's easy.
Yeah, if that's easier. Yep. We did get a wild one today, but other than that, These are just some of the success stories. I was counting on Nicole to go in depth, and she did. So we are a Texas Main Street Program affiliate. We are also a Keep Texas Beautiful affiliate. We are nationally recognized for the Battle of the Bands competition. Right now, we're probably going to have to cut off submissions early. We generally cut them off in August because the competition's in October. And we have to narrow it down to 15 bands. And this year in June, we already had over 80 applicants. I've had more register since then, and I haven't even checked where we're at. So we're probably close to 90 applicants that we're gonna have to go through and try to see who should be advanced. It's gonna be very hard. But there was even a band in there from Russia. They're relocated to Los Angeles, but I'm like, we do pay a travel stipend, but it's not conducive to Russia. But it's just, that at least tells you that there's interest and people from all over are hearing about it. Our community cleanups, it's our second year, and just in 1 year, we usually have about 40 tons of waste that's attributed to being thrown away just in our neighborhood cleanups, not even on people's own accord. So we've had plenty of parks improvements. So Huber Park's play equipment, the pass-through park, not Wanda Klaus, but the one past that. We've had tourism and quality of life initiatives, things like Boomtoberfest. We are part of the Texas Travel Alliance. It's funny because we get emails almost every week for different travel centers that'll ask us for more information, like our flyers that we give out, because people, they like sell, or not sell, but they are taken off the racks all the time. People are interested in it. And we were laughing because we were telling Garrett that, and he's like, I wonder why people want to come here. And I'm like, that is the point. Like, we want them to want to come here, Garrett.
That was my question.
It was close enough to be insulting.
I don't really want to be here because we're offering $15,000 to the grant.
But our Tall Tales tour, like Nicole said, we opened it up at midnight on June 1st, and by 8 a.m. it was sold out. And we get a lot of heat for that because people want to attend it, but we tell them 6 months in advance. We open up a Facebook event and tell them, you better set your clock. And every year we have the same people. I forgot. I don't know what to tell you. 30 other people did.
72 passenger
Yes.
trailway bus.
It is not fun.
So it is a bus ride there?
Yes, we either take the turtle top buses that FPC has, or we utilize their vans. The vans are a little more ideal. It just depends on what they have available for us to utilize. But we do go out to Plymouth Bridge, so it's
Plymouth Bridge and the baby's grave out on the ranch, or
the old cemetery.
There,
So there's.
it starts in town. Like the in-town stuff is pretty easy.
We generally can only do 30 because that's 3 buses. And the other caveat is we don't always have drivers. So it's always Nicole and myself. And then it's hard to find a third driver. But the vans or the buses don't fit that many people. And like Nicole said, we have a waiver for every property owner for every property. And then the Turkey Track / Wittenberg Ranch is governed by a board. So we have to wait. We can only submit our request in once a month, and their board has to approve us to go out there. They have to review waivers. And it's a huge undertaking for, even the 30 people we do take. So it's not something where we could have constant trips going out there. They have livestock on there. But then there's also like wild pigs and stuff. So, it is a little bit of a risk if you're going out there. So I agree. I always say, if not friend, why friend shaped? This last year was the first year that I had actually seen that. And it is kind of funny because, again, there's livestock out there. It's usually at night by the time we get to the cemetery. And if you're not familiar with that location, you'll see the eyes looking at you, and it just plays into the story. And people just, they don't want to openly admit they're terrified, but when they start running, you kind of know that they are. She's kind of listed off all of the other events, but also the microchip vaccination program. This one's Garrett's favorite. We call it Barks and Rec. And every year I try to find new ways to include the word paw in everything that we do, just so I can make him say it publicly.
Paw.
But that's actually a huge blessing to our community. Our animal control shelter advocates are great. Our animal shelter officers are fantastic, and they really do go above and beyond to help with just protecting the pets of our area. So this is kind of over the power of positive engagement. Every resident is an ambassador of Borger. The story of our community is written by the people who live here, not who we wish live here. So retraining their perspective through education and opportunities to have their voice heard is the key. We want constructive feedback versus complaints. We already kind of talked about the lurkers. We want people to be able to articulate their frustrations and what they need from us versus just, y'all suck, I hate you, nobody knows what they're doing, you're stealing money. Because that's the generic low-hanging fruit that everybody goes for. We want you to be able to say, hey, I am kind of frustrated. I've called twice about a pothole. It doesn't look like it's been filled. I've wrecked I've been a tire on it. I'm just a little frustrated. I've submitted a concern. I just wanted to let you know. And that's where we're like, this is a valid concern. We're so sorry that that was your experience. Let me get this to the street superintendent right now, and I will follow up with you. Versus y'all just suck and we hate you. But we also want our citizens to be part of the solution, kind of like what we talked about with our businesses on Main Street. We want this bustle and beautiful, revitalized city, but that's a lot of pressure to be putting on people with no resources. So we want you to be part of the solution. We want you to say, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and this is what I would like to go down there. And we want to be able to get you with Nicole and Katie and do all of the things to get you to where you're supposed to be going or what path. We can't force you to do anything, but we can at least put you on the right path and give you the tools and resources to hopefully, do whatever you're wanting to do. We also want to kind of reinforce respectful dialogue. Again, you don't have to cuss at us and be wild and go on a character assassination to get your point across. You just have to tell us what your concerns are, but are those really your valid concerns or were they regurgitated to you by somebody else that really, again, didn't maybe understand the process or they didn't understand what they had heard and now you're mad because you heard this and that. And that's really what we see a lot of is people don't really think for themselves. And we have the capacity to do so.
I tell my staff they do not have to put up with profane, disrespectful, discussion. And if you're calling and you're cursing out the utility billing clerk and she hangs up on you,
you earned it.
I am not going to take your complaint. If you're going to be like that, they do not get paid to deal with and listen to that type of disrespect and that type of profane language. You wouldn't, if I called you and said, if you submitted the complaint, I called you and say, you stupid MFer, did you not go onto the website and see that we don't do that stuff? Do you not know anything about what you're doing? You wouldn't expect that from me. You shouldn't expect
we
would respond to that either.
Yeah.
And so now don't get me wrong. There's a difference between being frustrated and being agitated
right.
because you're frustrated. But that's not unloading on a staff member. Even inside, I will. We will ask you to leave the building.
Get a band.
Now, because and people get like that, and most of the time. And the sad thing is, half the time they call back and apologize the next day and are perfectly fine. Well, if you're going to apologize the next day, maybe you should have
just kept it in a little longer.
But
people need to check theirs. Look at our politicians, our
yeah.
national politicians.
And,
I
get that in government there's not a whole lot of trust, and I don't want to say it's obvious reasons, but it's a story that's been the same since 1776. So I feel like what we do well here is we try to be as transparent as possible. We try to be as responsive as possible, but not everybody knows that, especially if you haven't had a serious concern in the last probably 5 years since really the team that's here now has been here. I can't speak to what your experience would have been, but we really do hope that we're facilitating an environment where you feel heard and valued and seen, and that if you do complain, and you don't have to yell and cuss at us to get your point across. You can say, hey, this is what's going on, please take care of it, and trust that we will do just that without having to come in here guns blazing and just being very derogatory and upset.
You could have talked to a person and they went on vacation and that it slipped their mind to tell somebody else before they left. You know, I don't think anybody's intentionally not doing
No.
any work, but, and like I said, there are things that definitely generate frustration. I expect people to be frustrated with some things. I can deal with frustration. I can deal with a little bit of, you know, irritation. You know, we can work through that. We can't work through just flat out, you know.
Grouchy
People
mean.
behind those
Yes.
positions, it's still a person.
Again,
Keep in mind, yeah, and that's like when we talk about trying to humanize all
Humanize.
city staff. I mean, they're part of the community too. And like that pothole, you drive by it every single day. Why, you know, I think we talked about this. You know, when you've got, you know, what are your city employees doing? Nothing. Well, there's 119 miles of road in this town.
we hear that a lot, like with our alleyways. Well, the trash truck's going down it anyways. He can't just stop and pick up the mattress. Where is he going to put the mattress in the trash truck? Like, it doesn't work like that. If he stopped to pick up every bulk piece of junk next to a dumpster, nobody's trash would ever get dumped.
And then 12 people would be pissed off because their dumpster didn't get in.
Instead of just the one. And again, like,
And
Don't-
absolutely, how hard is it for them to actually get a hold of somebody, or get a hold of something, or borrow somebody's truck, or get a friend to come over to help them, and then take it and go throw it away in the proper place?
Call and ask for the bulk trailer. We'll set it
it's
up.
for free. It is
Like I said, we
free.
might not have, you might have to wait, especially on the weekends or depending on what it is, but it's just a matter of, and like I said, the number one problem that anybody at the city has to deal with is your service level expectations are up here and what you're willing to pay for it is down here. And so my job is to balance that out, you know, because, you know, you want all of this and I get that, but you know, for me to have every pothole filled, you know, within 2 hours of it forming, yeah, I'm gonna need 25 people in the street department and I'm gonna need 10 more trucks and I'm gonna need to raise your taxes by $1. But nobody wants that.
Right.
And so, and everything's, like we talked about with parks, you know, well, this park needs this. Well, okay, well, there are 25 other parks. You know, I can't put everything that everybody wants in every park. We couldn't afford it. You know, and now we're getting a little bit, you know, Agnes Howe. We need to work. By God, you've let it go to crap. We've got stuff in plans. We're going to do that. But I also needed to spend $3.2 million on a swimming pool or we'd have no swimming pool.
Yeah.
And it's a different crowd. And, well, I don't use the swimming pool. Yeah, but a whole lot of people do. If I'd spent the money at Agnes Howe, well, my kids aren't in youth sports. Now they don't have a place to go swim. And so that's, you know, I think just putting things in perspective a little bit, and we're constantly working to try to improve everything, but you know, it takes time and you got to give us a little bit of space.
But you got to be part of the solution. You have to participate in the feedback. You have to show up and voice your concerns to city council.
And have reasonable expectations.
Yes.
And spend your money here in town instead of going to Amarillo
Yeah.
to buy everything.
Or Amazon. If you remember that.
Yep.
But like when we talk, like one of the surveys we pushed out there, you know, it was asking like what type of businesses you want. And I mean, seriously, we had two that were dead set. They wanted the Sam's here. I would like a Sam's Club here, but Borger is, we're not in their demographic.
It's like 12,000
Borger is
people to
never getting a
work at the
Sam's
Sam's Club.
You know, we
Don't
cannot
ruin their
support a
dreams.
Sam's. You
Yeah,
know,
we get a
that-
Chick-fil-A a lot.
But you know, and that's the kind of the other thing we haven't really talked. I don't get to pick. I'm
No.
not picking the restaurants that come to town or the fast food or the stores that come to town. You know,
If it's zoned appropriately, we
People
don't.
seem to think that the city has something to do with that. It's the guy with the money that wants
Exactly.
to invest it in something. He can put
well, I
it
think you
where
need to
he
get
wants.
this. Well, why did you get the Wendy's instead of a Chick-fil-A? I was like, what do you mean me? Why did I? I had
Garrett-
nothing to do with that.
Garrett's single-handedly crushing everybody's dreams of Taco Villa.
Bring Domino's here, or
Yeah. Hey, you got the money? We'll work with you. We'll connect you with who you need to. I'll help you find land. I mean, we'll do all of that. But I don't get to pick. You know, the city council doesn't get to pick.
As long as it's zoned and you have the money, we can't really stop you from doing what you're wanting
or
to
the
do.
ability to get some money or be loaned some money.
Yep.
Well, and a lot of that, I mean, and there are sometimes things you can do little things, but a lot of those national franchise chains, they've got demographic criteria.
Yeah.
And if you don't meet their demographic criteria, it doesn't even matter if you've got somebody with the money. They're not.
They won't do it.
Like I know there were talk here probably 10 or 15 years ago about IHOP. You know, when they were building the American Inn, everybody thought we were getting an IHOP. Well, we didn't meet their demographic criteria. You know, he had checked in to get an IHOP and doing that and wanted to do it and had the money to do it, but it didn't matter. We couldn't get to the franchise people because the demographic review, they looked at your population and the traffic counts. And that's, you know, where sometimes we can help explain, because sometimes demographics don't tell the whole story. like the fact that 51% of our workforce doesn't live here, and that 51% is going to drive by that intersection on their way to work and on their way home, but they don't live here, so they're not in those numbers. But most of the times, it's like Love's has contacted about looking for a site, but for a Love site, they want,
It's like 30 something, isn't it?
I can't remember how many it was. It was 30
Day.
or 40 tight class 7 or 8 semis in an hour. And so you're either going to have the data or have to get them out there and have them sit there and click. So you've got to find the land that they want, and then you've got to have the data to show that 30 trucks, 30 class 7 or class 8, which are, combination tractor trailers, go by it in an hour.
All for Loves. But sharing accurate information is a form of positive engagement too. Fact checking things before you just go and share them. Or
if your post starts, I heard,
please.
or did you hear?
We're easy to get in touch with is all I'm saying. Just a quick little, hey, we had someone come in today and we're like, we're told that FBC is taking over all of Agnes Howe. Is that true? And I'm like, I have not heard that. Let me double check before I tell you one way or the other. Supporting neighbors during emergencies. That's something that unfortunately we are not immune to having different types of emergencies. I spoke at a Texas Department of Emergency Management conference a few weeks ago, and it was over the importance of like having social media in an emergency. And one of my opening slides was just 1 week in Borger, Texas. There was like a murder. Someone drove a semi through an intersection and a hotel. There was like some pig carcasses rolling around. There was, I think, a tank fire. There was all of these different like crises in 1 week in such a small town that people think, stuff like that's not going to happen here. It, for whatever reason, can, and it will. But checking on your neighbors. We in one of our seat at the tables that we had a few months ago, we had someone coming in and kind of complaining about their neighbor, and rightfully so. That is frustrating whenever you take fantastic care of your property and your neighbors really don't, and their trash is blown onto your yard and their snakes are coming into your yard because they don't mow theirs. But one of the things that our code compliance officer was like, a lot of times when we get those code violation notices or whatever, when we're going to investigate that, the first thing we do is to check on the well-being of the property owner. A lot of times, they were like 9 times out of 10, it's an elderly person or somebody suffering from a chronic illness. Now, that's still frustrating if the lawn is and the property is dilapidating, but at the same time, a lot of those people don't have support. We don't just go and borrow sugar from the neighbor anymore. I mean, there's so many people that they don't know who their neighbors are, and they've lived in the same location for years. I always joke because my sister, she kind of lives in a rural area of Maryland, and she still knows every neighbor. Somehow she's like the president of the HOA, and we won't even get into that because I'm like, you're a little loosey-goosey with the rules there, but she knows everybody's name, their family. They pick up her kids, and she picks up their kids, and I mean, it's just such a sense of community. And I'm like, man, for as close-knit as I feel like our community is, we don't really do a lot of that. I think social media is great, but it also has absolutely detracted us from reality. We can scroll for hours mindlessly watching other people live a false scenario, a false life in front of our eyes, and then we kind of forget, we lose touch with reality. And really, what matters is your community, your family, what you're doing. I mean, I don't know, it's a double-edged sword for sure. This is kind of the last piece of, I would say, my job is crisis communications or emergency communications. And again, unfortunately, we do have a lot of different emergencies, and we're surrounded by industry. So we have industrial accidents. We've had tank battery fires. We unfortunately have vehicle accidents pretty frequently, wildfires pretty frequently. We're not immune to anything. Unfortunately, you've got Tornado Alley that's pretty much right around here. So in all aspects, we are at risk for different things happening. And so the same way we do the fun, fluffy type of communication, we do it the same way for our emergencies. So how is information shared during an emergency? We communicate if necessary on our websites, but absolutely our social medias. So if you don't follow at least the City of Borger's page, I would do that. We also have City of Borger / Hudson County OEM page. That's we try to concentrate emergency type notifications or weather related information on that page versus every other page. So that way it's kind of concentrated. You know, if are we having an emergency? If it's not posted on that page, it may not be that. I wouldn't say it's not important, but it's not critical at that point.
There's a difference between a routine emergency and, you know.
We are in like, yeah.
And so like a basic car crash with a single lane closure that hasn't completely diverted traffic
Right.
probably isn't going to warrant a specific
local alert or something.
Alert or communication from us. A road diversion, detour, things like that, yes. And I would, you know, she got it out there, we just talked about, you know, verified versus unverified information. We're going to verify information before we put it out, and sometimes that takes a little bit of time. Because even if you're listening to the scanner,
things are changing rapidly.
What that emergency responder says is based on his viewpoint, which may or may not be the totality.
Right.
So, you know, in a fire or something like that, you know, even, you know, the incident commander or us in the EOC will work to confirm, you know, reports by more than one source.
Yes.
Just because people have different vantage
Like road
points.
closures, for example. I mean, we can't just go close a road. Even if it's like, oh my gosh, we need to do this now. We have to get DPS involved. We have to get TxDOT involved. We have to get our first responders involved and make sure that everybody is in cahoots of why we're closing this, what that's going to do in terms of an impact, what it looks like, how long, why are we doing this? We also...
During the fire, we wouldn't have known nothing.
That's exactly why we really started doing that, because we had, especially during the 2024 wildfires, we had known for days that we were under a severe red flag warning. We knew the risk out there, but unfortunately we're in a red flag warning a lot. And that's just, you know, people get immune to that. They're like, oh, we're red flag warning to them. Up until that point, didn't really mean anything. It was just like a severe weather watch. You know, they didn't anticipate anything happening. And unfortunately that year it did. And we really did not have, you know, we tried our best on our end to communicate red flag warnings. What does that look like? But we didn't have really a whole lot of support from the exterior media. They weren't reporting on any of it.
No, because I was at home and I had it on 4, 7, or 10 flipping through trying
Yeah.
to get something, and they were telling us nothing. But the stupid soap operas were on the
The days of our lives.
And the fires happened up there, the stinky fire. I'm crying because I'm watching houses burn. Because that was just like watching my house burn.
Yeah.
And they didn't help us.
Well,
Y'all helped us.
and keep
That's
in mind
all
though,
they help.
and not that I'm just, but you know, they're an hour drive from here.
I understand.
And
But
so,
once it hit the point when it was doing that,
Yeah.
they weren't breaking in.
no, but even like in a lot of those fires that move so fast and they can grow so fast, a lot of times they can be through and moved on before that type of news can get over here. And so traditional news I think is very good for weather. That's still what drives the bread and butter of their viewership. So they're gonna, you know, take care of wet weather. You know, fires are getting a little better based on some of that stuff with fire detection cameras and other feeds, but fires are still very much handled locally. And so you've got to have those local
Yeah,
sources.
but if we didn't have y'all, because I would be like, I would just kept refreshing Facebook.
And we definitely could feel that with people because, and you know, during that time frame, like I said, unfortunately, we had things just started happening so quickly that we know we were pushing out every alert we possibly could through every avenue. So we use Everbridge. We also use IPAWS, WIA, anything we could, any tool we had, we were utilizing it. But people were getting so much information so frequently and so fast that they didn't really know how to digest it. And finally, I'm like, look, I need to just explain it. Like the best I could do in person, which was a Facebook Live. And it did end up helping a lot of people only because we could go back in real time, kind of reiterate what was going on. The chaos that...
Well, there's a certain amount of that that's because, okay, there are two things that generally drive chaos now. One is what I call Joe Blow rubbernecker. And
Rubbernecker.
there are a lot of those in this county. And the minute something happens, they immediately get in their car because they think they need to go see it or they need to go get their eyes on it because they want a rubberneck. That's not helping anybody
No.
or anything. And so, of course, we try to do enough communication to where you're in the know, and yeah, maybe you can see it so that you don't have to go
Yes.
rubberneck, but that can still be a problem. And then B, the people, we are in an information age now to people where people want instant
Gratification, instant information.
and some of that, I get all the time. Hey, there's a wreck. Why haven't I heard anything about this? Probably because it happened 30 seconds ago. You just happened to drive by it, so you saw it right after it happened. The fire trucks and the police cars aren't even there, so it's gonna take us a little bit of time to put things out. And and then the other thing that kind of drives me crazy, I see a lot now, is I heard a siren over here last night. What's happening?
The neighborhood pages.
We, when we're at the fire department, EMS goes on 2,300 calls a year. That's 8 calls a day. There's a good chance it probably might have just been the ambulance and somebody needing basic, regular, everyday medical assistance. I'm not gonna, we're not gonna get on there and EMS is being dispatched to, this address for this nature call. For every single call. That's, there's some privacy concerns with some of that, but we don't want to dumb it down and numb everybody to where they don't pay attention to the things that matter.
Yes.
And so, and there were 2 police cars over here.
What was happening? They live there, sir. Like, what do I still tell you? But I mean, that's a really good point, though. I mean, we try really hard to give as much information as we can, but that goes back to, especially in emergencies, it is a partnership. If you aren't signed up for at least one of these means of receiving information or know to at least seek out our social media or some form of communication, it's not going to land on your lap. And I think, too, a lot of, especially for our emergencies, like the number one thing we have in terms of concern is wildfires, I would say, and for a mass population. And we try to do education all year long on mitigating your property. What does that look like? Our wildland team doing mitigation around town. I mean, they really, nobody understands how much work they put in and how that whole process works and how they identify the places and the ecology that comes with their burns and all of the things that go into that. But it's still a partnership. If you're not going to maintain your property and make sure that your property is fire wise or fire ready, we cannot always help you, even if we have the best of the best, which I feel like we do. But even if we have these people out and even if we're communicating, there still could be things that happen and it's still a partnership. So
keep in mind too with social media, the more you interact with the page,
the more you're gonna
adding a comment, the more that stuff will pop up to show up in your feed. So I mean, seeing it is one thing,
but engaging with it,
watching the video, liking, sharing.
That tells the powers that be of social media that you are interested in that type of information. So it's going to funnel more of that information in,
and
not just us.
It helps. The more interaction a post gets, the more
visibility.
Other people's feeds that may or may not even be engaging with it. So, I'm not saying write a comment on everything that we post, but, if you find it interesting or useful, like it, share it. It helps make sure that that our posts stay in your feed so you know what's going on, and it makes sure that other people in your friend network might start seeing that because it starts thinking that maybe your friends will like that. So, I'm the world's worst about being a passive scroller.
He's a lurker.
I post once every month or something like that. I'm on it 4 or 5 times a day because I want to see what's going on, but I don't interact a whole lot. I do try to, share or like city posts that I think are important to get out there. And so you can do it a bunch of different ways, but that's definitely one way to help you on social media and to help us on social media.
For sure. If you didn't notice, so again, borgertx.gov/alerts is where you can sign up for Everbridge. It's free, and it's not just for Borger. It'll triangulate areas wherever you're at. If there's an Everbridge network, if there's an emergency in that area, it'll push that out there to you. I know even just the county buses, or there was a situation one time where we had to close down, or DPS had to close down. I think it was 687 by the dam, and there was a bus headed straight in that direction, and they were about to be trapped by it was a whole thing. And luckily they had Everbridge. We were able to push that out, and luckily their transportation coordinator saw that and made them turn around really quick. So, I mean, it triangulates areas. It's super helpful. Like I said, it's free, and it's for all of Hutchinson County and whatever other counties have it. And this is the last part of it. The future of Borger. What does that look like to you? What do you want it to look like? It's not just up to us. Everything we do, Garrett talks about it all the time, is for the collective good. So the decisions we're making, the work that we're putting in is for the collective good. But that only works if you tell us what you want to see. And it only works if you put in a little bit of skin in the game as well. The city government can build roads, we can build parks and infrastructure, but a thriving community is built by engaged citizens who care about where they live. We say it all the time, love where you live. If you don't love where you live, why are you here? It's only going to be, it's a mindset at that point. And it's going to be the same in every city you go to.
Just open your eyes maybe a little bit more. I think I might have mentioned this before. One of my other kind of things that I say a whole lot now is we're always our own worst critics. You know, when we look in the mirror, you know, we see our flaws, right? You know, we don't always see what somebody else sees. And so that very much happens in our own community. A lot of times when we drive around, we're seeing the bad. We're not
seeing the weeds, the potholes. You're not seeing the
that's
good.
why, like, every time somebody's come back to Borger for, you know, for the first time in 10 years, we get all this positive feedback. People from other communities are, oh my God, your downtown's so much nicer than ours. And oh my God, you know, that you know, it's amazing. We get a ton of compliments, and 90% of them are probably from people out of town.
Because all the other ones, I hate when people refer to it as the dirty beat, and I'm like, stop it. You know, stop calling.
That's right, Dina. Tell them.
Well, somebody the other day, I read a comment, it's like, well, you know, nothing ever changes in this town. It's the same as it's always been. I'm like, well,
My weekends would beg to differ.
Yeah.
well, but even I mean, 10th Street's been completely rebuilt. The dome's been completely rebuilt and added on. The swimming pool's got a whole new brand new swimming pool. We've got new play equipment in 3 different parks. We've got a splash pad in 2 parks now. I mean,
in our football field,
Yep.
all that whole.
there's a whole lot of things that have
We're
changed.
really a blessed community if you actually look into it. I mean, if you just open your eyes, there's so many positive things about our community that I wish were celebrated more. But that's a really good point, and that's something in my job that we try really, you know, Nicole helps out, Katie helps out. We really try to even target like our hotels. They're the front line of visitors, whether we want them to be or not, and their perception of our town kind of depicts the perception of the people staying at the hotels. So yeah, there's nothing here.
Yeah, that's what.
Or you're calling and you're, you know, the people at the front desk of your business. You're there visiting, and
I hear all the time, like, I wish we had this, you know, I wish we had this that Pampa's got, or I wish we had that Pampa got. You know how many times I hear from Pampa people, I wish we had all these things that you have.
it's just perception.
Because you get used to what you've got. Like, we like a lot of things in Pampa because it's different than what we've got here. But they like a lot of things over here because it's different than what they've got in Pampa. And so, you know, having that mixed up is a little different. But I can't tell you the number of times that we take calls or we answer questions from all the regional cities. Well, how did you do this? Or how can we do that like you do? I mean, I guarantee you in almost every area or everything the city is, you know, and that's the biggest reward in this job for me is when I hear, you know, someone say, well, we like to ask you all things because, you know, if that's how you're doing it, we know it's good, or we know it's vetted, or,
Yeah.
you know, we know that you've always got the good policy, or you always got the good plan, or they recognize, you know, oh, you're from Borger. Well, we heard, you know, we know about them, or, you know, and so that's, a lot of that happens a lot more than you think out regionally and in conferences and things we're at. Brandon, assistant city managers in the MPA program at Tech, one of his professors was up at a conference in Illinois or something, and she was texting him, hey, I just heard of some things about Borger. We need to talk about that. I need to see what y'all are doing. So she was at some planning conference, so I don't know if it was about our Main Street designation or something that we're doing, but a Texas Tech professor heard about it in a planning conference like in Ohio. And so, you know, we're on the right path and we're progressing forward and we're listening, and we've got the Boomtown conference plan like we talked about before. It's all driven by citizen feedback, but we've got to prioritize. And so I think that, you know, there's a lot more happening than what you think, and I hope that you understand maybe a little bit more about that.
And we want you to be a part of it too. You know, what kind of community do you want in 10 years? your life will change significantly no matter what age you are. You know, I have a 10-year, or about to be a 10-year-old right now, and in 10 years she's going to be 20. So what she wants in 10 years is going to be completely different, but there's still going to be 10-year-olds then. You know,
And
what I
realize
want
that-
then is going to be completely
But
different.
everybody's desires change too. So while you might want this now, somebody 10 years younger than you might not want that. They want something else.
Right.
And somebody 10 years older than you want something else that you don't want right now, but in 10 years you might want that thing.
What is your role? Like, what role are you playing in all of this? Are you sitting back and watching as everybody else makes decisions for you and tells you what you want or what you should want or what you don't like? No, we all as a collective don't like that. We don't like the city of Borger because this, and then there's nothing to do. That's just regurgitating something that you have heard, that somebody else has heard, that somebody else has said, and that's just how that goes. How can we work together?
Just because they have nothing else to say.
Like I said, people rarely will think for themselves, and that's not, I'm not trying to be ugly about it. I mean, I've caught myself doing it too, and a lot of people don't think for themselves, because once you start thinking for yourselves, you start thinking differently. You don't take things at face value, or, you start seeing things what they are instead of what somebody else told you they were, or what you even wanted them to be. How can we work together? How can you be a part of what we're doing? And how can we be a part of what you're trying to do? What are we doing to help? And that goes both ways. I mean, I feel like the city in a lot of aspects is definitely underutilized. I love the fact, like I said, that we have random people in our office every day of the week. And it's gotten out now that we could potentially be a resource. They don't know what for, but they'll just come see us. And we don't always have all the answers, but we at least try. And half the time it's, let's go get you to Shelby really quick. Or you don't really need me, but I bet I know who can help. Let me call Wayne at the transfer station. Or you know what? You need finance. Actually, let me get you with Jamie. She's in utility billing. She's great. Or no, that's not really us. This is this person.
Well, we had a guy in here the other day complain about the gas company. He had a problem with the gas company. And they wouldn't turn him on because they needed him to pay, but his credit card said it hadn't gone through, and they said it had, but they don't know what they were waiting on, and so he's trying to get something done, and I couldn't help him because we don't operate the gas system. But what I did is explain the gas company, and I looked him up a number, and I was like, I get that you're trying to want to deal with somebody in person. I was like, that's not going to happen here. I was like, their closest office is in Weatherford.
Yeah.
And so, but taking, sometimes
Just taking the time.
like we've talked about repeatedly with a lot of services, just a little bit of time to explain things and answer some questions and give him some direction, didn't completely ease his frustration, but made him happy with us.
It's just sometimes hearing people out. It's a big part of my job. Do y'all have any questions?
About anything over your 12 weeks?
Yeah. I think if anything, hopefully you leave here with a better idea of what local government looks like. It's a whole lot different than the federal government.
My goal is for you, to have a better understanding of why things happen, what they are, and what you can do, and how you can help, and how you can get help. You've met some people and have some faces to put with different services and different things. That we've taken some of the stigma away, so if you have a problem or an issue or a need, you know who to call, or you're not afraid to call, or where to come in, that City Hall is not some scary big place, and that, our goal is to help everybody as much as we can.